right, my name's Mike Dice.
I'm Elias.
Episode number 4 of the Extra Rounds podcast coming to you. We have a full slate today. We have 4 huge guests on the show. We have Anthony Rumble Johnson, who's going to be up first shortly to talk about his fight at UFC 202 against Glover Teixeira. We have Glover coming on shortly after him to talk about, of course, the same fight. We also have Luke Rockhold coming on at the end of the show, and before that we have Steven Wonderboy Thompson, who, whether he wanted it or not, his name can't not be in the news lately, which is not always a bad thing. So full slate of guests coming to you today. This is going to be a guest-heavy show, and arguably, I think, our biggest lineup since our first episode, before 201.
Could be. I mean, to have 4 guests, this is the first time having 4 guests in one show, so that alone,
that's
right?
True.
That alone is huge, and I love when we have, like we did before 201, I love when we have 2 opponents on the same show talking about the fight. That's pretty cool, so I'm excited.
And this was like the last weekend with no UFC fight for like 2 months, so we don't have a fight to recap, so which allows us to go straight into these interviews. But next week, even though we'll be touching on UFC 202, we have a full slate of guests lined up for that one as well. A lot of Bellator 160 fighters talking about that fight Friday. So let's get right into it. We do have a couple of topics that we wanted to talk about before getting into the interviews.
Gotta go into this craziness.
And it's everybody's favorite. If it was a song, it would be the song of the summer. USADA.
USADA owns the summer.
So, first thing.
Or botched the summer, one of the two.
Yeah. Ruined. It's like when the kids go to the camp and the summer camp and like there's some serial killer on the loose tormenting them all. That's like USADA. It's like USADA in the Scream mask with the knife. Like,
watch out, USADA's behind that door.
And the kids running away are UFC events.
and Brock Lesnar.
Yeah. So, first thing we wanted to talk about when it came to USADA was Tim Kennedy.
Oh, yeah, this is amazing. For those of you who don't remember, he was a special force. Well, I get confused with military terms. So, I know he trained with Rangers. Yeah, he trained with Rangers. I believe he's special forces. These guys will kill me if I get it wrong. Put it this way. He's an elite, active military, member of our military who's been in combat in addition to being a top UFC middleweight. So he's got guns, is where I'm going with this. He knows how to use them, which oddly leads into this story.
And that's not a rare thing. Of course, Brian Stan's like a notable name. There's the crossover there, and there's a lot of teaching in martial arts methods, whatever. But the gun situation.
So USADA, goes and does unannounced drug testing. Good idea, right? You don't necessarily want to let people know who may or may not be using drugs when you're coming. Then it's not random. Then maybe they can plan for it. Tim Kennedy hasn't fought in a while since his controversial loss to Yoel Romero, but he's coming back. He says, I'm fighting again. So unless you're Brock Lesnar, that means you've got to go under drug testing again. Unless
you're Brock Lesnar.
Unless you're Brock Lesnar. And Tim Kennedy had USADA drug testers show up at his house. Again, he didn't know that. So Tim Kennedy got on this past week and said, hey, I showed up at home. There was a car on my property. I didn't know who they were, why they were there. And Tim Kennedy is a cautious, skilled man and pulled a gun out on this person and asked them to identify themselves. Hey, listen, I don't know the circumstance exactly. That may not be an unreasonable thing to do. Tim Kennedy, I'm assuming, was at home in Texas when he did this. Turns out, according to Tim Kennedy's account, that the USADA, the person who was on his property was an USADA drug tester there to get a sample. So, listen, Tim Kennedy may have found the secret way to influence drug tests. No, I'm sure he had no intention of doing that. But hey, man, be careful who you sneak up on if you're a USADA drug tester. I like you trying to maintain the integrity, but I don't know, man. I don't want to go snooping around Tim Kennedy's house without him knowing who I am.
I'm not trick-or-treating at Tim Kennedy's house. But here's the thing. First, the USADA person shouldn't have been waiting in the driveway.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, come circle around, come back later, park on the street. The public street.
Why not?
Don't be sitting on its front door. I mean, I would be thrown off by that too. Now, I probably wouldn't carry a gun and confront you, but the other thing about this is do you think this is true, or do you think this is a fabrication?
I can only hope. I can only hope that it is. I think it's a real possibility that a man who makes Katy Perry parody videos may have just made this as a joke. Oh, but I hope it's real. I hope not that I wish any terror on USADA drug tester per se, but I don't know, man. Maybe reconsider your career choices when you've got to go watch people urinate and then you have guns pulled on you.
The other big thing is John Jones posting on his Instagram. And for those of you who don't know, I believe his Instagram's private now, so if you weren't following him already, you can't see this. Let's see if we can actually pull up the audio for you to listen to. Let's see.
Luckily, the whole internet has gotten used to John Jones posting things and taking them off.
I don't know why he bothers deleting it. It's already on YouTube by the time he's thought about deleting it.
He's a marketing genius. Him and Donald Trump should host like seminars for how to maximize social media.
Like that shared memories. Yeah. Oh, there we go. That's a good call. Let me go to that one. Like on Facebook, you have that memories.
Yeah. Right.
And like it'll bring up like old posts, and then I'm always like, ugh, delete that. All right, this is John Jones, his Instagram video. So let's play the audio for you.
How's it going, Bones Jones supporters? If there are any of you guys still out there, just wanted to take a few seconds to say hello to you all and to give you a little update on how I've been doing. Been doing really good. Been training, spending time with family, attacking some of these legal issues that I've gotten myself into, trying to really just leave that all behind once and for all. I'm sure you guys are curious about what's going on with this USADA situation. Obviously, I can't get into it because it's still pending, but what I can say is that we have found out lots of really good news, and I am expecting to be back in the octagon really soon. Thank you guys for your continued support. Love you guys, and I hope you are spending this Sunday with people that you love. All right, be good, and I hope to see you guys really soon. Bye.
That actually prompted you and I to come in the studio. You're like, you know what? I haven't seen Mike Dice this weekend. I got to take John Jones' advice and be with the people I love most.
John Jones is
so I left the wife behind and came here.
We both left your wife, my fiance.
That's right.
We're like, sorry, we gotta go find the people that really mean to us, and his name's Elias. So he says, notable thing, of course, that he said he got good news.
Good news.
And that he will be returning to the cage soon. And the other throwaway thing in there is that he's been working on rectifying some legal situations, which, as we know, he came to a plea deal for the drag racing charge, which is most likely what he's referring to in that regard. But he's got good news, and he's going to be in the cage soon, which means that whatever his defense was, which we don't really know, I don't believe. I think everybody assumes he's going with tainted supplement, but I don't know if we actually know that officially.
Right.
That maybe something came back and that it was a tainted supplement, which would be incredible. Now, here's the thing that always interests me about the tainted supplement argument, is that then once you find out you violated a drug test, you have to go to the store or whatever and buy whatever supplements you're taking to then turn them in and see, like, are any of these tainted that aren't supposed to be, matching the labels or whatnot, and if they are, that's how they corroborate, right? I'm explaining that correctly.
I mean, to the extent that they ever even go through that effort, that's when that's exactly what they try to do.
So my thought on this for those of you who don't know, I have Crohn's disease. It's not a big deal, but I don't want to say that because there's probably people who have severe cases of Crohn's disease, and it is a big deal to them. I don't think of it that way. Anyways, I have to take a drug every 2 weeks, and it's like a self-injection or whatever, and it comes with a batch number, and I have to keep the paper. You have to peel this paper off to access it's like an EpiPen kind of, and you have to keep it, and on that number has a lot number. So like if something goes wrong or if you have a bad reaction, they know which lot number it came from.
Interesting.
So if you're a UFC fighter and you're taking supplements, why not save supplements, like just like a little bit, like a scoop of each, and then you can like date it or whatever, and then you just put it somewhere, and then you have like these, like I saved a small part of every supplement I took, and you date the days that you took it from. I mean, I don't know if like that probably wouldn't work for your defense side of things, because they'd be like, well, how do we know that this is actually what was in an unsealed
Well, that's part of it. That's a really good idea. Part of the reason I'm guessing that maybe if they haven't, the fighters don't do that they haven't, is that, but also that excuse has rarely ever flown before USADA. Like maybe once or twice in Nevada, if I'm not mistaken. But people don't care if you took something that was completely legal but not, was not allowed, had ingredients that are not allowed in the banned substance list, or B, if it was tainted. They never really gave much lenience, but lately with USADA, they seem to be. I know everyone's talking about increased drug testing, but USADA has seen a lot of people who have failed tests end up getting reduced sentences. So we have a lot more leniency as far as sentencing, I think, overall, and what I'm saying. So I don't know if it would work. And also the other reason I might say this is because I don't think there's that many tainted supplements being the cause of this. If I had to venture a real guess, I think people use things that are banned.
So if tainted supplements was a more legitimate.
Right.
I was gonna say actual, but
actual is
problem.
Actual is a better word.
Actual problem that fighters would be taking those steps.
I mean,
but
I would imagine so.
It's like I didn't mean to tweet that, I got hacked.
Right. Yeah. That's right. Exactly.
That kind of defense.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm guessing. It seems a way, but you're right. That would be the way to go. And maybe if this starts to be something that is actually like allow or used as a reason for people to get off the hook of a test or something valid. And we've seen some examples of similar-ish things in the Olympics lately, or international competition at amateur level. If that becomes like a more common thing, maybe we'll see it more structured, and we can, and that would be good too, But yeah, I think a lot of it is really, a lot of it with athletic commissions has always been pretty informal, and now it's much more informal. Oh, John Jones says he has good news. That's great. We're not aware of that because it's not public information like it would be, and it is when it's athletic commissions. They have hearings. For the most part, we're aware of, like, this is the testimony. This is some evidence, such as it is, that's being brought. Now all this stuff is being negotiated. Nick Diaz stuff is being negotiated with Nevada. John Jones apparently is negotiating something with USADA. So Yoel Romero is as well. It's a very strange situation.
So you think it's a negotiation from John Jones' side of things as opposed to some test or something validating?
Well, I don't know, but it could be. Like, it could. I mean, we've seen that in the past. I mean, hopefully it's just like you said, some scientific tests being validated. But I will say this: it would be nice if we were privy to that as well. And if we're not up to this point, as it happens, which we should be, the public, we'd better be afterwards. Like, USADA better come out with a lot of documentation for the public so we know what happens.
I would imagine that they would have to before he were to ever fight.
Have to is an interesting thing because they're not governed by anyone but the UFC who pays them. So we'll see.
I
right?
mean, I guess have to is the wrong word. They don't have to, I guess, but it seems like they would.
I would hope so.
Like,
I would hope
why,
so.
if you had something that could, like it was a tainted supplement or this or that cleared his name and allowed him to resume, I think as the UFC you would put that out there.
I hope so. There's been very little opacity with past situations, though. When the UFC self-regulated and had the testing issues with Kung Lee or with Yoel Romero, it just kind of comes out like, we found, we've come to these terms. So I hope, but I think it would be a diversion, it would be a departure from what they've been doing, which is not a whole lot of transparency or explanation after the fact. But you're right. I think they should. I think it's up to us, I guess, to demand it or ask for it.
So what is your initial reaction hearing what John Jones has to say in that?
It basically that. I'm assuming it's either something like that, some validation or investigation in secret has been going on and involving some testing and that's happened. I doubt it's that. That type of stuff is expensive. They're already, not a lot of money is being dropped relative to what could be, and I don't think it's happening now. What I would imagine, my guess would be that they've been negotiating. I think the specter of John Jones's excuse having some merit, whatever it might be, like you said, we're not really aware of what it is, I think could prompt USADA and the UFC to say, all right, well, here's a 6-month sentence that goes back to that initial time, and when this fight week in UFC 200, and then that would be pretty soon. That's what I would guess has happened, is that the specter of John Jones's argument possibly just drawing out the fight. He's one of the few guys that probably still has the money to actually battle for a while. So I don't think they want that.
Yeah, it's like but the other side of that is like if any fighter could fight a drug suspension through the appeal process, and like you said, that trying to prove that a supplement was tainted or whatever is expensive. He's one of the few who has the resources to actually do that and clear their name. Chad Mendez had to just basically be like, his thing was, if I'm remembering correctly, that it was he took a supplement, he didn't know that it had an ingredient that was banned or something like that, and he basically was like, I'm gonna man up and take the punishment. Like I didn't know, I didn't do anything intentionally, but what can I do about it? But he doesn't have the financial resources that John Jones does.
No, and John Jones has already used that, I feel, as like successfully threatened regulators or in the past, like we did with Nevada back when with his whole cocaine positive test during training camp. The narrative that was pushed out there was that, we as the athletic commission messed up. We weren't supposed to, and in fact they were pushing it further. We weren't allowed to test him for that. I went through Nevada code, and they absolutely had the right to test him for cocaine, as they did. They had the right to take disciplinary action. I went on and I spoke with commissioners, and they agreed that they had the right to take action against him, but they didn't really want to go through that trouble. And that was preceded by John Jones saying publicly, I'm talking to my lawyers about this and saying I think they messed up in some way. These commissions don't have big budgets, and USADA works for the UFC, so we don't have a lot of real teeth in regulation. A lot of independence, even if they have the good intention. They don't have the resources, I think, to really do it.
Interesting. Well, that's all that's going on in the world of USADA. If we're to believe John Jones, he's coming back. Maybe that Madison Square Garden fight happens after all.
I mean, I'm fine with that. By the way, I'm fine with that. I don't want John Jones locked up in a cell somewhere forever because maybe he took something. It's just I think there's weird inconsistencies in the system.
And for me, I don't want somebody who's been using PEDs to circumvent the system either, but I also don't want to see John Jones on the shelf for 2 more years. Sure. He already sat on the shelf for a year. We don't want to see him, don't want to see him on the shelf for another 2 years. Also, as we talked about, the sobriety angle with him relates to me on a personal level and makes him more compelling to me. Like I always thought John Jones was a magnificent fighter, and I enjoyed watching him. But I don't know that I have favorite fighters or that fighters that I particularly cheer for or root for. But I feel like John Jones' story made him more compelling to me, made him more interesting to follow or watch or listen talk at a press conference or how he was handling things, because I can relate to that. So he made himself more compelling to me in that regard. And I think it's an interesting storyline that we don't always see play out. Like you see in NFL, people get suspended for 10 games, they kind of disappear, and they come back. Think about all the stuff with Johnny Manziel or other notable names like Tyrann Mathieu, a good person who battled addiction, and he's come back and done really well with the Arizona Cardinals. But it's just been interesting to see him go through the two processes at the same time. But that's a conversation for another day.
All right, yeah, it's a good one. I think it does, and I think that's something that it's not a good thing. But I think John Jones, if there's any positive, it's maybe people seeing that a spectacular athlete is human, and that he's going through struggles that a lot of other people do, and it's how he handles it, and hopefully he sees, and hopefully people see. See something compelling and inspiring in him if he does well, and hopefully he draws support from people. Not again, we're mixing things a bit. Like I'm not saying he has some PED issue, but definitely has other issues. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. There's going to be a press conference on Wednesday, and you pretty sure Dana White's going to be standing right between Connor and Nate. So somebody's going to ask a question about it. Hey. Maybe that'll be my question.
But there you go. Yeah, because you'll be in Vegas, baby.
Maybe. We'll see if somebody beats me to it, though.
You could just always do what most journalists do and just repeat the questions already been asked.
Reword it.
Reword it.
This is the subtweet to end all subtweets in verbal form. All right. Well, I'm told that we have our first guest on the line, Anthony Johnson, who fights Glover Teixeira in the co-main event of UFC 202 in what kind of become a light heavyweight number one contender bout, joining us by phone. Anthony, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. We know you're really busy.
Thanks for having me, man.
First of all, how is the jaw healing up? You had a broken jaw, you had an injury. How's that healing up?
Oh, good, man. I just left the dentist right now. That's why I was a little late for everything, for the phone call and all that. But now I got that $1 million smile, so I'm good to go.
That's good to hear. This fight's been delayed? It was supposed to be in Chicago. Has the delay been beneficial for you? Has it been a hindrance to start training camp and delay it, the back and forth?
I mean, there was a little bit of both. I mean, it gave me more time to train, but this is basically the longest camp I've ever had. So you having 12-week camps and stuff like that. It's hard, man. Being in the gym that much, grinding. You know what I'm saying? So it was tough. You know what I'm saying? Grinding that much, but it also helped me because I had plenty of time to perfect my craft.
Now, Daniel Cormier said after UFC 200 that he viewed the winner of this fight as the number one contender and the person that he would fight next in his next title defense. Dana White's basically came out and said the same thing. Does knowing your path to the title or what that path is, does that help you focus or add extra motivation?
I do my best to stay focused regardless if it's a title shot or not. So, I mean, it really doesn't matter to me. But it definitely gives me makes me put a little bit more, gives me a little bit more pep in my step. You know what I mean? Knowing that the title shot is potentially 15 minutes away from whenever I step into the cage.
All right, Anthony, I was at your last fight, and you won, and you're on another win streak here. After you won, you were exiting the cage, going to the back. I was there in media row, and you shouted at, maybe it was some individuals, but it was definitely seemed that it was at least at all of us there. You were revved up. You seemed angry. You said, write something good. Why were you upset, or why are you upset, if you still are, with members of the media?
I mean, I wasn't mad. I was just speaking the truth. I mean, the media, it's a lot of bullshit in the media, really. Usually the media, journalists, whatever you want to call yourself, they want the best story. They want the juiciest story, so they get the most hits. So they get, they get the most traffic coming to their story. You know what I mean? And I just seen a couple of guys, say some stuff, and it seemed like they always want to be negative, but they barely want to be positive. And I'm like, this sport, we fight each other, right? And a lot of people already see us as, I should say, I don't want to say not good people, but they see us as, animals, really.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of people think that, just because we fight in the cage, that we're just wild. These same guys that fight in the cage, they think we're these same guys outside of the cage. They think we always have an attitude. They think we're always mad or mean or something like that, when that's not the case. 99% of the fighters that I know, they have their own off switch. So, write something good too if you want to write something bad. Make sure you get both sides of who you're talking about instead of just trying to be one-dimensional and speak negative most of the time.
Well, sure. I think that's fair. We got to tell well-rounded stories. Were you upset that people were writing or talking about domestic violence situations? You had allegations. You had one conviction. Was it just that you felt they were only?
It wasn't just one specific thing. It was just everything. You know what I mean? So It wasn't one specific thing. Like I said, it was just everything, and I called them out on it. You know what I mean? Regardless of who it was, because who the people that know who I'm talking about, they looked directly at me. They looked at me they looked at me for a split second, and when they saw me make eye contact with them, they looked away. So they knew who I was talking about, and that's fine. Just don't get up in my face and try and act like you're all cool, and then when I say something, switch it around and try and make it sound like I'm being negative or I said something negative when that wasn't the case. So I mean, it is what it is. I understand people got to get paid and whatnot, and try and get these sound bites and all of that. But I mean, let's be real and play fair. But at the same time, life isn't fair.
Clearly, that would be frustrating to anyone to feel that only the negative aspects of their life are being highlighted or career for that matter, and not the positive. And actually, when I was moving to Chicago, an athlete that I knew, gave me some advice and said that the Chicago media is always negative, to try and be positive to stand out. So I understand that. So let's take a minute to highlight some of the positive things you do in your free time. Are there charities or community organizations you work with, or people you mentor?
I don't know if I mentor anybody. You know what I mean?
I'm sure you mentor everybody in the gym you train with.
I guess I try to lead by example. I try not to be a knucklehead like most like a lot of people in society these days, because to me it seems like the world is going absolutely crazy with these killings and all of this stupid stuff, you know what I mean? And racial profiling and all of it's just dumb, and as far as any other thing, man, like as far as being a part of the community and things like that, I really like being a part of like the Wounded Warrior projects and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And the vets and stuff. I really have a lot of respect for them.
Why does working with vets in particular stand out to you? Do you have a family member who served?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has a family member somewhere that is in the service, one way or the other, or has been. But anybody that wants to fight for my freedom, I have a ton of respect for them. They go out there and put it all on the line. And, a lot of people say that being a fighter, it takes a lot of heart and courage and stuff. But I'm like, I'll fight anybody any day. You know what I mean? You try to send me over to another country and talking about shoot these people and just to protect their country. I mean, I'll probably do it, but I mean, it takes a special individual to be able to go over there and do that. And they're fighting not for their freedom, but they're fighting for my freedom and our country and in the future. So I have a lot of respect for that because it takes a lot of heart to do that. But I tell you right now, you send me over there to another country and we're in war, you give me a gun, I'm shooting everything in sight. I'm not taking my finger off the trigger.
All right. Since we're talking about it, and that's the only reason I'm going to bring this up, I'm wondering if you've seen any of the comments that Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has made about veterans, or the incident that was recently where a veteran gave him his Purple Heart, probably expecting Donald Trump not to accept it, and he kept it and then boasted about how it was easier to get one this way. So I was wondering if you had seen any of this, or if you had any thoughts about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very political, but I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not very political, but I think this is the worst. I think everybody's screwed with this case about who's going to be the next president. I think everybody's in trouble either way. You know what I mean? 'Cause it just seems like it's a game, and let's talk about who did what, and talk about who did what and who's not doing what, instead of trying to figure out what's best for the country. I mean, Hillary Clinton pointing the finger at Donald Trump, saying this and saying that, and Donald Trump pointing the finger at it's just back and forth. It just seems like it's just all childish and games. But I mean, like I said, I'm not in the politics. It's just what it sounds like to me. So it's just real stupid. Neither one of them will get my vote.
Okay. Let's get back to the UFC. Obviously, you're looking to knock off a champion down the line, not this fight, but hopefully the next fight. I'm wondering if you've witnessed kind of the turnover with the belts and nobody seeming to be able to hold on to one, and what your thoughts about that were.
I mean, it is what it is. Are you referring to John?
No, not necessarily. Just, there's been 4 new champions in 2 months.
Oh man, yeah, it's crazy. I think it's great for the sport. It leaves every division wide open, man. This sport has evolved, so much. Anybody can be a champion that's in like the top 5, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? all you need is that one lucky punch or that person who made that one mistake, and if you're the challenger or whatever, you could be the champ in the next 5 seconds. You know what I'm saying? You just never know. So I think it's great. It keeps the fans interested. It keeps the fighters motivated. You know what I'm saying? To keep going for their goals and doing the best that they can do. And you know, it all works out at the end of the day for everybody.
Now, Anthony, winning breeds confidence, and putting people out the way you often do has got to breed even more. You're on a win streak again. A few fights ago, though, you had a title fight, and despite almost knocking Daniel Cormier out, you lost. Now you're back on another win streak. I'm assuming you're riding high with confidence, and you're close to another title fight. How long did it take you to get your confidence back up to 100%?
I never lost confidence in myself. You know, when I lost to Daniel, he was the better fighter that night. You know what I'm saying? Daniel's a true champion. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people probably still call him the paper champ because he didn't beat John. But at the end of the day, Daniel is the champion. You know what I'm saying? He's doing a hell of a job being a champion, and he's awesome. That's all I can say. You know, I never lost confidence in myself. I just kept grinding and just kept pushing, and you know, I got my new coach Neil Melanson with the grappling, and my coach Bobby with wrestling, and of course I still got my main man Henry Hoof, you know, with my striking. And I just sharpened up tools, man, and evolved, and just my confidence got higher after the loss.
Anthony, you're known obviously as a knockout artist, as a striker, and you're a great one. But you wrestled before you ever did mixed martial arts, before you ever did striking. Do you look at your wrestling skills as something that you got in your back pocket if people ever sleep on it too much and you may need it in a fight?
Yeah. I always know my wrestling is there really before my striking. You know what I mean? But people are stupid enough to stand in front of me and want to strike, so that, you know, that's their fault. But you know, but at heart, you know, I'm a wrestler, but it's not something that I focus on. You know what I mean? Because even though this is mixed martial arts and you got to do what you got to do to win, and some people are wrestlers, some people are jiu-jitsu guys, and some are strikers. I just go out there to do my best, have fun, and hopefully the fans like it. And so far, the fans are definitely enjoying my fight. So I'm gonna do my best to keep it how it is.
Anthony, earlier before you came on, we were talking about Jon Jones. Now, I got to ask you, you know, you've been scheduled to face him. He was scheduled to face Cormier again. He's had any number of difficulties, illegal and otherwise, that have kept him out of the ring for a long time, over the last, or for long stretches of time over the last few years. Should we be past the point where we're all talking about where's Jon Jones? When will he fight again? Will he fight again? Where does he fit in to the title picture? And like basically talking about all of you all in relation to Jon Jones. Are we past the point where we need to be thinking and caring so much about Jon Jones and in relation to the top of the light heavyweight scene? Should we stop waiting around for him?
Yeah, I mean, we just need to let it go and just keep it moving, man. You know, don't need to sit back and dwell on what happened with him. He's got to deal with it, not us. So why even think about it, or why even have that in the back of your head? You know, you have other guys in the division that are hungry and want that title too. So why think about somebody that's really not even in the picture right now? And if he comes back, then that's when we need to focus on him and discuss him and I can't say worry, but be prepared. You know what I'm saying? Because Jon is a hell of an athlete. You know what I'm saying? You can't defend your title, eight times or something like that, 9 times or whatever, and think he's some kind of chump, because he's not. So, you know, but until he comes back, there's no point of really, you know, giving it any thought. I feel bad for the man, and I wish him the best, but I mean, all of us have to move on, and that's just what it is.
Well, Anthony, we know you're busy. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. And I promise you a positive article coming about the love of your veterans in the United States.
All right, thank you, man.
No problem. All right, it's Anthony Johnson. Initial reactions.
I'm glad he talked about stuff. He definitely doesn't want to talk about some of the stuff too much. He doesn't want to go into details like with domestic abuse allegations and, in fact, conviction that he has. And he says he's not mad at the media. Clearly he is. And I don't know what it's like to be in the public eye like these guys. So I'm sure it's tough. I don't know what the situation is. All that we can kind of see is like what it is on paper, right? Like, hey, this allegation came out. You pled to this, and now you got a conviction for this. Like, I don't know what the situation was. All we can do is look at stuff like that, or look at stuff where he completely lost his cool on Twitter regarding some woman in a yoga mat. So I can get why he wouldn't want to talk about it, especially with a fight coming up. But people got to ask about it. I don't think this is given a lot of attention. I don't think a guy with a domestic abuse conviction that was just like never mentioned by the UFC when continuing to fight has had too much attention put on that. But again, he was vague. Like, I don't know what everyone writes. There are definitely journalists out there who don't try to look at athletes as human beings and try to paint one-dimensional pictures of them, or who try to demonize people. And that's never something that I don't think you and I ever try to do, even if we're critical. If we're critical of a human being, we can be critical of a human being. We're not demonizing them. So I don't know exactly what got him upset out there, what was said or written by media members. Maybe he's in the right that they were completely wrong in whatever they said. It's tough to say. I do appreciate him talking. He's a phenomenal fighter, and I think he's an interesting guy to hear from. I hope everything continues to work out for him. And he's able to just continue on this great career that he's built for himself without any other distractions, or without him possibly doing any things that are wrong or that he'll regret.
We are always taught in journalism school to bring a fair and balance, to not let bias creep in. And I'm sure, given the way digital media works today, that's not always the case. And that it creeps in. And he obviously seems to be mentioning or referencing at least specific incidents. Right. And without knowing what exactly it is, like, who knows if it's that or what, who knows. But it's maybe a situation where the UFC being undercovered by mainstream media helps in that regard.
Absolutely.
It's a double-edged sword. You want the mainstream media coverage, but it not having it also benefits at times as well. There's I'm sure there's incidents in other sports that are undercovered that aren't as big as like the NFL, where something like that would be all over the place. But all we can do, I guess, is try to keep holding people accountable when need be.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the very least, Anthony's he did an awesome, conversation with us. He's got to, if he wants people to not portray him poorly, he's got to try not to like lash out publicly, because that's going to be the story. You're going to make it the story, and maybe it's unfair, because of course that's not all who you are as a human being, of course. But sometimes it's where if someone's not giving you a fair deal, just don't talk to them, or I don't know, don't make a spectacle out of it on Twitter, or because we didn't know what the hell was going on. We got a 200 big dude shouting, write something good. You like why aren't you happy? You just won, But I don't know.
Well, and to go to the positive, he talked about his ability to, or his fondness of the vets and the Wounded Warrior Foundation, and how that cause means a lot to him. And having Lex and Stefan on last week, that obviously strikes a chord with us.
No, it's cool to hear that.
It's an issue that we talked about basically for most of the episode last week, and it's nice that he takes an interest in that. The other thing he said, he doesn't mentor, that he doesn't know that he mentors anyone. I'm sure he mentors somebody in his gym.
Yeah, unless you're like the most,
view it that way.
Right. Unless you're the most selfish teammate ever. When you're in a position like him, you're helping some people out.
And I'm sure he does. Yeah. And he doesn't even realize that he's doing it. I'm sure there's a young fighter in the gym who asks, and he gives some pointers here and there, and makes a big impact without even realizing he makes a big impact.
I bet so. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And it's cool to hear fighters talk about respect for other warriors out there, and it was cool to see his humility there, saying like, man, they're doing stuff that I don't even know what I could do, and not just saying like not just guts, but I felt like when he was talking about like, man, if I was out there, I just wouldn't take my finger off the trigger. I think what he's saying is that it's a scary, like a maddeningly scary position to be in.
A little bit of fear that will come with being in that position.
And the fact
he's
that
not saying it in a Rambo like this badass kind of way. It's more of like
the fact that these soldiers, and other service people out there don't just go crazy in a scary situation. The fact that they have the wherewithal to most of the time do their job well and have any type of tact and presence of mind, it really impressed him, and I thought that was cool. Because. Everyone thinks they're a tough guy, especially if they're a tough guy like he is. So it was cool to see him talk about people that he really respects and whose job daunts him.
And he's kind of funny.
Yeah, he's a funny dude, man. Stop
talking about the dentist and laying down a smile.
That works, man. When you're not throwing yoga mats and screaming at the media, he's an awesome, cool guy. I like him. He's been cool to me every time I've interviewed him. I think he seems like a good dude, man.
Well, we got his opponent on the line, so let's jump right into that. Glover, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. Sorry, we're having a hard time hearing you. Let me check the dials here. All right, Glover, thank you. Oh, that's the wrong number. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. Let's try. Well, let's just push forward. Has the delays, this fight's been pushed back a couple times. Has this been a hurdle for you, or is this just, routine?
I don't know. We find out what's going on. You never know what's going on. The fight being delayed is just another month later. For me, it doesn't really matter.
It's the Nate Diaz answer.
Yeah, that's right.
So Daniel Cormier said he wants the winner of this fight. Dana White said, or basically said, that the winner gets the title shot. And we asked Anthony Johnson this: does knowing the path to the title goes through Anthony Johnson, does that add a little bit of extra motivation? Does it help you focus? Does it make you feel better about the future, knowing what the path is?
No, man. We're always training to win the fight. No matter, we looking forward to the title shot for the tie. We want to be a champion. And this is the fight they're gonna put me in there. And this is a very important fight. But either way, it doesn't mean I'm gonna focus more or less because it's gonna be a title in the line or not.
Now, Glover, it's Elias. I want to go back a bit for FanSided and Sports Illustrated fans that may not be so familiar with all of your story. There was a period of time, in fact, a number of years, where you were probably considered the top prospect outside of the UFC at 205 pounds. Despite the UFC's interest and flat-out desire to have you fight for the UFC, there were years where you weren't able to fight in the UFC. You weren't able to be and work in America. I want to get a little bit more into that, but just for those again who might not know, why was that? Where for years you were kind of languishing, having to fight internationally and not in the big leagues where you deserve to be.
Well, paper issues. Like I couldn't get back into the United States because I was here illegally, and I had to go back to Brazil and work on my green card. And that take a little while. I don't know. It's just the way the immigration runs over here take a long time. So but all that time I was fighting in Brazil and keep my career going.
Throughout all those years, and it was years, Glover, was there any point where you felt as though it would never happen? You felt as though you would never be able to get to that biggest of big stages and compete against the very best in the world?
Well, I knew I'll get back to U.S., because I knew that, I'm married with an American citizen, but I knew that was going to happen eventually. It just take a long time, I was, it was a point I was worried, how long it was going to take, and if that was going to be, my career down the line. You know what I mean? Like, who knows if I still there to this day, and we get old, and in a fighting game, you only have a few years on you, and it just got a little worried for a little bit, but I always think positive, and it works out good,
It certainly has, and you're right. Fighters can't do this forever. Athletes can't do what they do forever. It's tough for me to ask you this because you are so clearly still at the top of your game and at the top of the MMA world. You're one win away from another world title fight, so clearly you're, as good as anyone, if not better. But still, do you feel as though in that time when you were younger and you weren't able to fight in the UFC for a while, do you feel as though, if you're honest, you lost some of your quote-unquote prime years?
I definitely like you. I could be fighting a little longer in the UFC, but I feel pretty good right now, man. I'll tell the truth. The age doesn't affect, not yet. I feel like more experience and more. I still do my conditioning, training 2 times a day, and I still work really hard. I don't know if it's because I've been doing this for so long and my body got used to it, but I don't feel that age yet, man. I guess this is a prime for a lot of UFC fighters, to tell the truth. If you think about it, you see Cormier is 37 now, and Michael Bisping is 36. He just won the title. I guess if you look at this as the prime maybe between 30 and 38, 30, I don't know, 40. Depends on some people like Dan Handles can go fight in top level into 43, 44. But I don't know. We see. I think I'm in my prime right now. I feel really good right now, and that's all I'm asking.
No, obviously you did eventually get into the UFC, and you did fantastically. You were better than probably most outside observers even guessed you would, and you continued your huge win streak, and you got a title shot. After going through all that, fighting so well in that fight in, I think, 2015 against John Jones, who was a champion at the time. You gave him a great fight. You had your moments, and you went the distance. How hard was it for you to still fall short and not get the belt? How hard was it for you to psychologically come back? Because clearly you've come back. You're on another, you had that fight, you lost that, and then you lost to Phil Davis afterwards. But here you are on another win streak. You've rebounded. How difficult was that for you to do?
Well, I think I did it easy. I just sit down and I figure what was going on, what I was doing wrong, and this is it. This is a fighting game. This is a sport. You just got to figure out what you're doing wrong and get better in situations. To get back and get in the top. And I figured out most of the stuff was in my diet, and training. I was training way too much at a time, maybe overtraining a little bit, and now I'm still training hard, but really smart. Smarter, and so this is it, man. This is a fight game. My head is pretty good. I just sit down and I gotta figure things out. Gotta see what the problem is and try to fix it.
Glover, did you always feel as though you'd get back to a place where you'd be in title contention again, even when you had that 2-fight losing streak?
Yeah, I know I'm a top contender now, man. I know I'm a top fighter. I'm a good wrestler. I'm a good jiu-jitsu guy. I have a good striking ability. I'm confident. I'm very confident in my abilities that I can be a champion. It's all a matter of time, and fight can go anything that you do wrong in the camp, it could change the whole fight. And but I know no matter what happens, I'm always going to be a top fighter. You know what I mean? I'm always going to be fighting with the top 5 contender, and my plan is to fix everything, to see what's everything comes together, and weight cuts and everything, recovering, and that that gonna make the difference between me putting that tight in my waist and that.
And Glover, you've trained all over. You trained at the pit, where Chuck Liddell came from, with John Heckelman. You trained American Top Team. You've also trained at home in Connecticut. I know you have your own gym. Have you been doing this camp in Connecticut at home?
Yeah, I'm training in Connecticut, my gym. Stay home right now, fixing everything. So it's better. It's more relaxing. It's more, it's home. So I feel better this way. I feel relaxing. I feel good. But you know what I mean? Like when they look things to say, like, don't get too comfortable. But like relaxing and have a good positive energy around you, and nothing to mess with your head. That's part of. And when you wake up in the morning and you go and you work really hard, that's the part of being a top contender.
You mentioned not wanting to get too comfortable, and sounds like you're in a phenomenal environment, training at home with your family nearby. Are there any challenges to training at home? Like was there ever a time also in your career, maybe when you were younger, where maybe this wouldn't have worked out for you, where you needed to be in a place where you would be more agitated, less comfortable, to be meaner?
No, it was never time that I thought it like that. I'm always needed to do it because I didn't have the gym or the training partners over here. But now I have my trainer live in Connecticut now, he's a very good trainer. And the fact that I'm training, I open up a small gym, and I have a lot of guys that come from Brazil to help me, and I have a good camp going. The thing between, like, you stay at home, it's like when camp's coming, you just gotta know what you do. That's camp. You know what I mean? That's camp. You gotta do. Right now, I'm a work camp training. I'm not going out doing, barbecue or having fun or this or that. The friends call you to do stuff. You just stay focused. That's why you have to separate those things.
And Glover, you're fighting again. Glover Teixeira here. You're fighting Anthony Johnson, UFC 202. This fight obviously has been talked and understandably been talked about as a bout between two knockout artists, because both of you are knockout artists. But at the same time, you've got amazing jiu-jitsu. I feel both of you have underrated wrestling. Do you think there's a chance that this fight also becomes a grappling battle?
I don't know if it's going to be a grappling battle, but the fight is open over there. I'm trying to take down defense. I'm trying to take downs. Because whatever is open, that's what I'm going for. I'm looking forward to beat Anthony Johnson, and I'm not, trying to prove anything. I'm just trying to prove I'm a better fighter than him, and it doesn't matter how, man. Take him down, go to the ground, jiu-jitsu. But and he's in the past he go for good takedowns too, and he got a very strong ground and pound. So I've been training for everything. I'm always say this. I'm an MMA fighter. I'm not have one thing that I do better than others. I think I don't know. Just boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. I train everything.
Glover, in this time you've been with us, in addition to talking about this matchup with Anthony Johnson at UFC 202, you've gone over, in short, this long, arduous journey that you had in your mixed martial arts career, at least, and the ways it's intersected with your life. You were very professional as well. You talk matter-of-factly about what you need to do to win, get back on track. Obviously, you're a pro, and obviously you're motivated by professional goals and stuff, but Is this still something that you love to do, the training, the competition itself, the fighting, the scrapping?
Oh yeah, man, I love to do this. This is something like I like to be in camp. Like I say, I like to separate those time. Like this is the work time. I love to have fun. Like after the fights, you go for a month. You train with nothing in your head. You train. I'm always training. But like, you train and don't have anything in your head. You go drink your beer in the bar with your friends. But I'm after a month after my fights, I start missing, the camp, the this what I'm having right now. Having to go home and rest and go back to the gym and train again. I still love to do it, man.
Well, Glover, we know you're busy and you have a lot on your schedule right now, so we thank you so much for taking the time out to join us and talk to us.
Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right, Glover Teixeira.
Got both heavy hitters from this UFC 202 card on, man. That was cool. It's cool hearing from you.
Yeah, it was great to hear. We didn't either one of them get to talk too much about the specific matchup, but I think it was enlightening, and it was interesting hearing Glover talk about his past.
Yeah, I mean, I never got a chance to talk with him. I was curious to hear about that. He really was in a unique situation for a lot of years, and I'm so glad it's still been able to work out for him, because there's concern like, hey, this guy is out during his early 30s. Maybe he's losing his chance, and he didn't lose his chance, and that was cool. And I think he told us a lot about the matchup though. When I asked him, you guys are both good grapplers, maybe you guys will grapple it. He's like, yeah, I don't know. So
I mean, that makes people who are going to watch happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I personally enjoy watching the grappling because I think that's the stand-up's obviously a chess match, but I think that the ground game is too, and I enjoy watching and the jockeying for position and the moves and waiting to see. But I know the fans would be happy to hear that these guys both plan on going in there and just trading.
Yeah.
So
for us, if that happens, if that fight's gonna last 15 seconds. So I don't know who will win, but someone will go down if they just go toe to toe.
And I believe we have Stephen Thompson on the line, and
Wonder Boy.
We do. Let me check. Yep.
Cool. Steven, thanks for making time, man. And we're going to jump right in. You are the number one welterweight title contender. It's not known yet if you're going to be the next one to fight for the belt. In my mind, both you and Damian Maia, who's on another, not as long as yours, but another really impressive streak in the division, have earned title shots like a while ago. And I wish you all got paid enough where one of you could get the next title shot and the other wouldn't have to financially fight again, and they could wait around and then do that fight. But Damian's got a fight coming up later this summer, and I know you're feeling like you're in limbo. You're not sure what's going to happen. There's mixed messages going on out there. Do you think there's an argument for the winner of Maia versus Candid getting the next title shot before you, or are you afraid that they can make you fight the winner of that before you get to fight Talon Woodley for the belt?
I mean, I'm here to fight. This is my job, and obviously you'll have to do what the UFC, wants you, who they want you to fight. But I just feel like this is my time. Like I put into work, and I'm so close. I'm here. Like this shot should be mine, And it would be disappointing if I had to fight, just in my mind, somebody else when the shot is right there. You know what I mean? And just because the champion wants a money fight, which he's not deserved, it's not deserving to him. So, yeah, I would be a little disappointed. I mean, I was actually disappointed to fight Rory. I felt I deserved the shot then, but you know what? I went out there and did it anyway. I beat the number one guy. Now I'm here. It's just so close, and it would stink just because Damian Maia is that would be a title defense right there, a good one. He is a very tough opponent, and he does his game plan very well, and he's very dangerous. So, yeah, it would be just the fact that, you don't know what could happen in a fight like that. and to be so close to that title shot. And if you do lose, man, you're just taking back a spot, you know?
So Conor McGregor comes in and he focuses on the money fights and the money division and all this, and then Nate Diaz plays into it saying that he's not even interested in fighting for belts. He just wants the big money fights. It's become all about money fights, and those are, of course, predicated on star power, but it's become a situation where everyone keeps going to the same pool of fighters to find a star to make these money fights, as opposed to going to some people and building them up into more stars ultimately. Do you feel like this could be a money fight if given the shot? You have an illustrious kickboxing career. You're 8-1 in the UFC, 7-fight win streak. You could be a star if you just got the shot or the push, and no one's giving it to you.
I believe so. I mean, just the style how I fight, it's a very exciting style, and I do believe that. You know, you got these guys like Sage Northcutt and Paige Van Zandt, but you got better guys in the UFC who just haven't been given the shot to be that star. You know, you've got guys in the UFC who have better records, better fighters, but you have these guys that are on lower in rankings, just, I don't know, being promoted differently. It's kind of weird, you know, and disappointing. I just feel like if some of these guys who are at the top of the game, who aren't as popular, is given a shot, yeah, I think they could definitely make the UFC some money and bring new people into the sport.
I mean, it's evident in the pay scale. Aljamain Sterling was upset with Sage Northcutt being paid more than him early on. I mean, TJ Dillashaw's pay from UFC 200 was woefully below what a former champion's pay should be. Is it frustrating to see the UFC get behind some stars like Sage Northcutt or Paige Van Zandt as opposed to someone who's on a 7-fight win streak in perhaps the deepest, most talented division in the sport?
Yeah, man. I mean, I really haven't thought about it a whole lot. I mean, it's been brought up a lot, but I mean, all I can do is go out there and perform the way I perform and put on a show and be respectful. And you know, I'm a head kids instructor here at Upstate Karate, and a huge reason why our kids program is so big is the fact that I fight, and the parents love seeing a respectful guy out there. So it is, you can definitely market that, and you know, just as role models for these guys. And yeah, I think it definitely make the sport a lot better than what it is, and that's where the sport is going. I mean, and the kids are the future. You know what I mean? So the more of those guys you get in there, you pull into the martial arts, and the better fighters you're going to get in the future. So yeah, man, I do believe that you got to go out there, and all I can do is just put on a show, man, and hopefully they'll recognize you for that.
Steven, I want to get back to the karate piece in a second, but you've said that you think it's petty for Tyron Woodley to kind of hold on to what you said before he fought and beat Robbie Lawler about you wanting to fight Robbie. He seems to have been offended by that, feeling overlooked, that everyone was assuming Lawler was going to come out of UFC 201 still the champion. But you think you said it, you think it's petty, but can you A, kind of understand his thought process for being upset with everyone doubting him, and B, do you maybe think he's just bluffing and doing all this, meaning saying he doesn't want to fight you next and not going to give you the title shot? That he's doing all this just to kind of embarrass you on television, like when you interviewed him right after he won the title, but at the end of the day he'll still fight you?
Yeah, man, that's what I'm hoping. I mean, just the fact that he's not taking this fight has got the fans kind of riled up, and it will promote itself. To be honest, I mean, I think it's gotten a lot of attention, just the fact that he's saying no. So let's say he does say yes, let's take the fight. I think everybody's going to want to tune in at Madison Square Garden to watch that. You know, that could be a possibility.
Well, that's definitely something we'd tune into. Wouldn't say no to that. Now let's take a different angle here. So let's say Tyron isn't bluffing and he does not want to fight you next. Like, he's telling the truth. Do you imagine, Steven, and I know I'm asking you to put yourself in another man's mind and shoes, but if you could kind of indulge me here, do you imagine, if ends up being the case, that he's simply looking for one of these gigantic existing names out there, like the St. Pierre fight? George St. Pierre's coming back, it seems, or Nick Diaz, who's who's a big name and off his suspension. Do you think he's just maybe searching for that immediate, not easy fight, but easy money, in the sense that those guys have already had the marketing done for them over the past decade? Or do you think that if he avoids this fight with you, he specifically wants to avoid this style matchup with you?
Maybe both. I know that he's a champ, and I know he's trying to make as much money as possible being the champion. So he's going to hold on to that belt as long as he possibly can, and trying to make the big bucks as fast as he can in a money fight for him. I mean, that's what he's shooting for. But for somebody to ask for something like that, you definitely have to earn that. I know he's earned it by knocking Robbie Lawler out in the first round, but, defend that title a few times, all right? You know what I mean? I mean, before you start asking for that, it's just like, it just seems weird that you can just, have the belt on for 30 seconds, already ask for a money fight. You had a lot of people giggling about that.
Earlier you talked about your family's karate school. Of course, your father taught you and still coaches you, and you all have school there in South Carolina. That's incredibly renowned. And now, in the past, you and I have talked at length about technique. And for this audience now, I was curious if you could talk about your development from karate, your guys' style of karate, to kickboxing, and then from kickboxing to MMA. There's a lot of adjustments that I'm sure you had to do from style to style to style, type of rule set to type of rule set. What were some of the key things you had to adapt in your style and in your fight style, whether it was footwork or your stance, what have you?
Yeah, it was kind of difficult, and it took a long time for me to actually figure it out. I started the martial arts when I was 3, and my background was Kimbo Karate. I used to compete in point sparring tournaments like every weekend, and I probably lost more than I won. But my main goal was to fight full contact kickboxing. When I was fighting point fighting, I was just trying to get used to competing in front of a lot of people. When I was 12 years old, I started my full contact kickboxing training because my dad fought back in the 70s and 80s, and my sister fought before me. So at 12, I was my sister's sparring dummy for a very long time. And then, I had my first fight when I was 15 years old. Fought a guy who was 20-0, and ended up just beating the brakes off him. And at the time, I was training with world champions here at Upstate Karate. My dad's trained champions for a very long time, and so I got fairly good pretty quick. And so I got up to 57-0 in kickboxing. Ended up tearing every ligament in my left leg, so I was out for 3 years. And at that time, I was training with George St. Pierre. And he was bringing me in for his camps, Carlos Condit, Thiago Alves, BJ Penn, for all these camps. And so he was kind of my inspiration to switch from kickboxing to mixed martial arts. Because I was training with these guys. So I was like, man, why not switch over? I mean, it's one of the fastest growing sports in the world. In kickboxing, I've done everything I pretty much could in kickboxing. So, yeah, man. So sparring with him, the footwork had to be a little bit different. I had to lower my stance because I had to defend against the takedown. I had to worry about that. And he was the first guy to actually, he was just taking me down left and right. He was waiting for me to blitz, which a lot of times I've modified that as well. Instead of blitzing straight in, I kind of blitz off to the side. It makes it harder for those wrestlers to shoot in on my legs. So there's a lot of things. And when I first, was asked to fight in the UFC, I was going to turn it down because I felt like I wasn't ready. But my dad was like, listen, son, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And they may never call again. So, just go out there and have fun, make the best of it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. And then after obviously, I won my first fight. And after my second fight with Matt Brown, I knew exactly what I had to work on. A, I had to get my weight cut down. B, it was my wrestling. So I found the best guys, try to surround myself with the best guys, best jiu-jitsu guys, the best wrestlers. As my buddy Matt Miller, Coach Tom, my wrestling coach here, Chris Weidman, who's just taking me to another level. And I'm constantly working on it. So I'm getting better every day and trying to improve every day, which is why you see a lot of champions, a lot of guys at the top of the game just kind of die off very quickly because I think their mindset's not right. They're at the top, and they feel like, I don't know, maybe what they're doing is enough, and they're not continually, coming into the gym with an empty cup, trying to learn and get better every day. But that's where I am, and I keep, positive people and good guys around me just to, keep me focused on that. So, yeah, man, it's definitely a journey, and I think I'm getting better, and you're going to see a better Stephen Thompson every time I step out there.
And you talked about training with Georges St. Pierre and his influence on you and playing a role in getting you into the sport. His name keeps getting thrown up by seemingly everybody. You know, maybe you get the Woodley fight next and you win the belt. He has a tune-up fight. Something happens. If this fight against him ever came up, would you take it?
Man, I don't know, man. He's a really good friend of mine, and he's the reason I stepped in. He still is a big role model for me, you know, for mixed martial arts. And, you know, for me, I would say no. But you know what? If George was like, hey, you know what, I wouldn't mind fight you, I would be like, you know what, it'd be a friendly matchup. You know, just like Roy. I mean, I've known Roy for a long time, too. But, you know, he's actually in the game, and we're at the top of the game, and sometimes you got to face each other. But, you know what, for me, I would say, nah, man, George is the man. You know, he's definitely, he has my respect. And, you know, if UFC asked him and he said, yeah, well, it would be a friendly match, man. I would say yes as well.
And obviously, getting the title shot is on your mind. Defending the title against you doesn't appear to be on Tyron Woodley's mind. What does it say to you that a champion could want to avoid fighting the best in their division?
You know, it's just disappointing to have a champion act like that. You know, I feel like if you're at the top of the game, if you are the guy with that belt, you should face the guy that's in front of you. You know, fight that number one guy, fight that number two guy. Defend that title a few times before you start asking what you want. You know, and of course, if I was in his shoes, I would be wanting to fight that next best guy. And of course, I got people around me who would smack me around and say, "No, you're not going to do that. You're going to fight the best." My dad being that guy. You know, it's just about. I just think the fight game and the martial arts is about honor and integrity. And you know, you're not seeing that sometimes in mixed martial arts. You know, it's just an honorable thing to fight the number one guy, fight the guy who deserves it. So that's.
Steven, I've talked with you in the past, and you've always been upfront and honest, breaking down fights. Like you've said things like, hey, this is a tough matchup for me, in different situations. You're on a ridiculous win streak right now, and the people you're beating are better and better. Are you starting to feel like, man, you know what, I'm really on point, and I consider myself as the favorite against anyone in the world right now?
You know what? As a fighter, that's something that you have, the mindset you have to have stepping out there. You know, you don't. Of course, I always like to say I want to go out there and just do the best I can. But in my head, as I'm stepping out there, I know that I have put in the work and that I'm confident enough in my skills to defeat my opponent, and that's how I am. That's the mindset you have to have going into any fight. You know, So for me, I am the best. I am the best in the division. Sometimes I'll say that, you know, because I'm a respectful guy and I want to go out there, and I do. I try and give it the best I've got every time I step out there. But confidence is very big and for me, and I'm confident I can beat anybody in the division.
Steven, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. We appreciate you so much joining the show. You had a lot of interesting things to say.
No worries, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on, so hopefully we can do it again.
Oh, absolutely, we will. Hopefully when he gets his next fight, whatever it is, it'll be a big one. Man, I love talking to that guy, man. He's a freaking human weapon, but then he talks to you like the most humble human being in the world. But he's amped up now, man. He's doing his version of trash talk.
Yeah,
and he deserves a fight. I hope he gets it.
The 30-second line he said a few times, and that's become his, I guess, like go-to jab. But he's still polite. And I think it's interesting that he said, you know, that is he has people around him that wouldn't let him avoid fighting the top contenders. And it's, you know, it's frustrating because he could be a star. But, I mean, of course, so could Tyron Woodley.
Sure.
You know, he's in movies and everything. He's got that crossover path already going. And they could build up a rivalry or something together, as opposed to trying to constantly capitalize on other people.
And I think the undercurrent here for me as well, like I'm torn. I think Stephen Thompson clearly deserves a fight, and I went even further. I think Damian Maia also deserves a title fight. And I also like I would disagree with Stephen Thompson because I'm in a completely different position than him, and I do think that these champions should have almost complete autonomy as to who they're fighting if we don't have some independent legitimate ranking system that requires it. So I want Tyron Woodley to be able to decide, hey, I'm going to try to make as much money as I can because he's earned it like everyone else has earned it. However, I wish it wasn't the case that in order for Tyron Woodley to have a chance at making a couple $1 million, that he has to fight these guys that haven't earned the shot. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish he could fight Stephen Thompson and still get paid like he should be.
And Tyron Woodley told us when he was on our show,
he sure did,
this episode, that when he becomes a champion, he's going to call the shots, and he's never going to have to wait on anybody else again, which seems to be interesting because he calls out Georges St. Pierre and Nick Diaz, and now they've been talking trash. He might get left out altogether, which is frustrating, I'm sure, for him. But the other thing is, you just won the championship, and you can build yourself into those huge money fights by continually winning. Like John Jones did over time.
It's so hard to. John Jones is, and Anderson Silva, the only, and Ronda Rousey, the only people to have long. You look at some of these records. They'll go back and look the longest title reign in lightweight, or it's I think 3 or something. It's hard to do, Right. So Stephen Thompson's right, and maybe if Woodley he won it when he was 23. So, but I don't know. I don't mean to interrupt, but I feel where he's coming from. Time is of the essence,
I mean, I'd like to sit here and say that if I was the newly crowned UFC champion, and I was looking to make my next fight, that I would go to the number one contender if I viewed him to be someone as unappealing. Now, I don't think Stephen Thompson's unappealing, but we're also not the casual fan.
Right.
So, I have a hard time saying that if I was a champion and Nick Diaz or Georges St. Pierre was out there, and I knew that now I get pay-per-view buys,
right,
and I can have a huge payday, that you're always ultimately looking out for yourself.
No one else is going to.
In an individual sport.
Yeah.
So I'd like to say that I would fight the number one contender, but I mean, it would be a hard decision to try and think, do I get this payday?
Right.
And build some financial security. One fight can boost a bank account really well, and then get on with fighting.
Right. Fight the hottest person in the division.
Perhaps the sport.
Yeah, perhaps the sport. Right, 7-5 win streak. A guy that can put you out with one punch. A guy who has probably the most difficult, unpredictable style to deal with. Or fight guys coming off of a year layoff, multiple year layoffs. Guys coming off of a loss.
If you wanted to fight those guys, it would be
exactly. And you'll make more money doing it. Okay, you almost have to. It's sad that the state of the sport is that Tyron Woodley almost has to be a masochist to want to fight Stephen Thompson first, instead of these guys Diaz and St. Pierre. I don't know if those are easy fights, of course, either, but I get where he's coming from. But of course, I get where Stephen Thompson's coming from.
It's a tough situation.
It is. And Stephen Thompson should be making 7 figures to be where he is in the sport. And I just want to agree with you emphatically that Stephen Thompson is extremely marketable. He's a good-looking dude, and he is a human highlight reel film. How do you not sell that? They could sell Georges St. Pierre taking people down. They could sell Stephen Thompson knocking people out.
But Holly Holm had that pristine image, and she became marketable. Of course, knocking out Ronda Rousey helps. She wasn't necessarily marketable beforehand, but that goes back to giving the number one contender or somebody a shot and then being able to prove themselves. But also, the other thing that I was thinking about when he was talking about the karate school and the clean image, and he was talking about how that appeals to the parents of the students at a school, it makes me think of what the WWE does with the PG generation and John Cena. And I know that's just a weird random comparison to make, but there is a market out there for a clean-cut, well-behaved, straight-laced kind of person.
Sure.
And Stephen Thompson fills that mold, and you attract like what the WWE.
So does Tyron Woodley. So a number of guys that they probably didn't push. Yeah.
Well, what they're saying in the WWE is cyclical. Is like the 80, wrestling in the 80s was kind of that way. Hulk Hogan, eat your vitamins, and then that generation grew up and became teenagers or young adults, and that's bred the Attitude Era. And, then they went to the PG era after that with John Cena, and it's to get that young crowd to carry you through the next way. So, like, the UFC has a clean-cut guy who appeals to kids or something. That's maybe somebody you want to give a push to because that brings in the next,
Totally, and it's a great point. And also, you can promote him any way you want, depending on which soundtrack you use. You use some violent, crazy, scary music and just show him knocking people's heads off. Boom. And then you want to go the other route? Show him speaking. You play this interview and show him being respectful and show him teaching class to kids. Like, you can take the same dude because he's a well-rounded, interesting human being and market him anyway, both ways. It's easy to do.
I mean, let's keep Connor and Nate talking trash on ESPN and Fox Sports.
Absolutely.
Stephen Thompson's a person you can trot out to Today or Good Morning America or those kind of things.
Great point.
There's all your top people or marketable people don't have to be the same. They don't have to be this trash talking Conor McGregor, Chael Sonnen model.
Right.
You can have there can be a variety of personalities at the top.
Totally.
We've talked a little too long. Luke Rockhold is on hold.
Uh-oh. He's going to be mad.
Yes.
Luke, we'll jump in, man. Thanks for holding on for us, man. Really excited to have you on. Saw on Instagram recently you posted that you actually posted you getting stem cell therapy. What did you see and what did you learn about that therapy that made you want to go that route on your injured knee, which was, of course, injured long before even your title fight at UFC 199, instead of going the route of getting surgery again?
I love the results from ET and Kane. Obviously, my guys that I trust and told me good things. Also, the UFC doctor himself, Dr. D, had multiple stem cells shots in and had a lot of success stories. So I would follow any path I could to avoid surgery. I'm not a big proponent of surgery. I've had one meniscus trim on my right knee, and that's all I've had my whole life. So trying to work around that as best as possible. And stem cells seem to be like the next greatest thing in the market. So I went for it. And I feel like it's had a good effect. My knee's healed quite a bit. I had my first day training actually yesterday back in the gym, and no real signs of fatigue in the knee. So I'm hopeful.
Well, that's really great to hear. I was going to ask you what the expectation was for when you get back in the gym. We're real happy to hear that you're already back in the gym. Now, when I went to visit you at American Kickboxing Academy, a.k.a. in San Jose this past spring, when you were in training camp for UFC 199, I didn't know at the time that you had already announced that you had an injured knee on Instagram sometime prior. I didn't know that, so it was news to me when I saw your knee braced up, when I saw you sitting out grappling rounds. How bad was your knee at the time? How badly hurt was it? Was it a pain thing? Was it an instability thing? And why did you decide to go ahead with what was your first middleweight title defense and continue to go ahead with it even when your opponent dropped out and you had to fight someone on very short notice?
Well, I had a great key sprain, and typically they're not that bad, and you can get through them in 4 to 6 weeks. And given the time frame, I was 11 weeks out, and I thought I could work around it, and it would heal by the time I would get to the fight. That was the idea. I tended to push things a little too far, and as I kept training through it, it never healed, and I actually ended up turning it worse to a grade 3 right before the fight, just because I tried to not kick. I wasn't kicking with my left foot, and I wasn't grappling pretty much the whole camp. Last 2 weeks, I really tried to push understand what I was capable of, and ended up carrying it more, throwing the left kicks, basically. And, I just thought I could fight through it. I fought through a lot of injuries. And, it's tough to say.
Yeah.
It was just, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot on the line going into a title fight. And so there's a lot of people are relying on you. A lot of money on the line. And, sometimes you just, you think you can do more than what you're capable of, and I just try to push myself through it. It wasn't the smartest decision. I think it had to do with more of my mindset, everything changing rather than the injury more so. But it definitely changed my style, my game plan. Through training camp, where I was focused solely on boxing, I tried to take it as a blessing in disguise and work around it. When I should have just really saw for what it is. It was an injury, and I should have just been back to doing what I do. What got me here? I got distracted.
And of course, you talked about things changing. So you were originally scheduled to immediately rematch the person you beat to become middleweight champion, Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman got hurt, and then all of a sudden, Michael Bisping fills in. Now, you had fought Michael Bisping not too long ago, a couple years ago, and you won decisively. As you had pointed out, you literally beat him, at least finished him, with one arm. You had a mounted guillotine choke, and you beat Michael Bisping. So now here you are, injured, new opponent 10 days out from your first title defense. Luke, one of the things I've said about that last fight, and of course you ended up losing the title to Bisping in one of the all-time biggest upsets. And I could be wrong about this, but I feel like it would be almost physically impossible in the position you were in, meaning fighting someone who you'd beat decisively not long ago. It would be almost impossible physically not to take that opponent for granted, even if it happened on a subconscious level, even if you weren't aware of that. Like, I imagine, in your mind, even if it was imperceptible to you at the time, you'd erased that threat before, right? You'd eliminated that threat, and here he is in front of you. Did you take him, now looking back on it, did you take that fight for granted?
Yeah, no doubt. I definitely took him lightly. I let my guard down, and it wasn't about winning that fight. It was about going out there and trying to do something more, trying to put on a performance rather than doing what I do, what I've done, what's got me here. So I've never, given the 2 weeks notice with Bisping, he came on short notice, and I already beat him obviously so decisively. I thought I had to go out there and to show something and to prove something. When I just needed to go out there and fight and win, do what I did. Anything can happen in the sport, and I let my guard down. I've never gone in there just careless and not trying to follow like the least path of resistance. And I can threaten a guy anywhere in the fight. For me to go out there and move around and do the things I was doing, it just wasn't like me. And I think I got distracted. The moment got to me, the stage got to me, and I fucked up. And it's a learning experience. Like all losses I've had, I've learned from, I've improved, and I've come back better than ever. And sometimes you just need something to reset you. And I guess this is it. Bisping got his 1 in a million shot, and anything can happen in this game. You can't take people for granted.
Now, Luke, any real fighter or any real competitor of any kind has to have a certain level, a high level, frankly, of arrogance. And I'm sure you've got that in you as well. How much, though, are you surprised by Michael Bisping's seeming inability to be classy for more than 3 seconds at a time? I was at that UFC 199 fight, right? Saw him after the fight. We all saw how he behaved at the press conference, the things he said, names he called you. Did the way he acted afterwards, the things he said, did that surprise you, even for Michael Bisping?
I don't even know anymore with that guy. He's pretty classless. Everything kind of lit my fuse that night. Obviously, from immediately after the fight to the press conference, and that's a tough one to swallow, losing to that fucking guy. And I'm looking forward to getting my redemption. So I tried to give him his respect. I thought he was a better person. Obviously, he's not. I think his true colors came out, and they're still coming out. He's just not. Not my type of people, I'll say that.
He said everything about that UFC 199 night lit a fuse in you, Luke. Is Michael Bisping your number one target when you get back in there to compete, no matter what, no matter if he still has the belt or not? Or is the championship your target?
Belt's number one focus. I want that belt. Of course, I want Bisping. I want to serve him up for sure. I want to get that one back. I think I gifted him, a title shot, and I hand wrapped that thing and gave it to him. Obviously, I know how vulnerable he is at the top with the amount of guys that are out there. So I'm trying not to hold too tightly to that rematch because I know there's a lot of things that could derail that, and to fall back and try to chase him rather than get the title would just be stupid. So my goal is to get that belt, stay on top. It would be sweet. It would truly be sweet to get him when he got the belt. But I'm rooting for Dan. Dan's my guy, and so I'm excited to see this fight.
And of course, Dan Henderson is fighting Michael Bisping in Manchester, scheduled to for the title. Now, Luke, I don't know why, but I didn't see the news until probably just a month ago that your father died just days after your last fight, and I'm we're both so sorry for your loss. I can't even imagine what that feels like. Had your dad been sick for a while before that?
He'd been sick for quite some time, and his situation was gradually getting worse. So we had some breathing changes the week before the fight, so I kind of knew it was getting close. He's been on hospice for a little bit, so it's a tough one. It's a tough one to swallow. You can't really prepare yourself as much as you try. It's different. It's a real situation when your dad goes. So it was a really tough week.
Is this? It's a lot of loss. That's a lot of loss in a short period of time. And I'm sure the loss of your father is by far the biggest. You also lost your title, and that's not even speaking of the frustration of injury and the pain of that. Has this now been the most challenging time in your entire life, Luke?
Yeah, I'd have to say it stands out like nothing else. This is I've never been put to the test like this one, and situations like this you can go one way or the other, and I'm choosing to grow from this and to be stronger. It's a tough situation, no doubt, but you gotta find the positives, find something to drive yourself further and to make the most of this what we have, so
I love that mentality. It's probably about the only thing you could be thinking of doing. Luke, though, if you don't get an immediate title shot when you come back to competition, who do you think deserves it? Hakaday, Chris Weidman?
I've been outspoken about it. I like the Anderson fight. I think it's a fight that he's still proved he's dangerous. He went out there and competed on 2 days' notice with Cormier, the light heavyweight champion, and was dishing it out, threw some kicks, and might have hurt Cormier for a second. He proved he's still an opponent, at the top of the game. So that's a fight that I've always wanted, and I know that obviously he doesn't have much time left. I think it makes a lot of sense considering his controversial loss to Bisping, and in our past. You know, he wanted to fight me in the past. Obviously, my loss to Bisping. So we go out, we fight that. I decisively beat him and put him away. I think that makes a big statement. So I get the Anderson Silva fight and make a big statement with it. So that's what I like in that. Otherwise, I don't know. I mean, I heard Weidman call me out now too. I think that interests me. I want the fastest route back to the title is what I want. Of course, I want Bisping. I'll be ready to go. I'll be in shape. I've already started training. And if Dan is an old man and things happen, so if that were to happen, there'd be nothing sweeter than coming in on short notice and taking my title back from Bisping in Manchester.
Yeah, Manchester, England. Bisping is a Brit. I imagine that actually be with a few places where this bombastic guy would actually have most of the fans rooting for him. So that'd be a hell of a thing to go in there in his home turf.
I somehow doubt he would. Not a lot of people from over there in the UK like it. He seems to rub people wrong on all sides of the globe, even his own.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna be in Europe. Turns out when that fight's happening, not necessarily in England. I don't know if I'm gonna to go to that or not. But man, if that were to happen, if Luke were to get on that, that card, it might have to be something I'd have to swing through for. Switching back to some upcoming fights. We saw you in Vegas last month for some of those events, and one of them, I know Nate Diaz and his coach Richard Perez were sitting near you. I know from being out there with those guys a little bit, they had a lot of respect for you. How do you see Nate versus Conor 2 at UFC 202 going, Luke?
Yeah, I like the Stockton boys, more kind of love over here. I always respected his style and his heart. The dudes fight, scrap, and they're true fighters. So I'm excited to see this rematch. I think Nate, given the proper camp, and I think he'll be a bigger fighter. I think he'll be more prepared. I mean, he's off a boat. I know Nate. I know his situation going into that. So I think he's just going to be more dialed in. I think he's going to use his reach, his length, and kind of pepper up Conor. Conor, I believe, is going to be more reserved. I think he's going to try to conserve his energy more. But I think that we'll just play against him. I think that was what helped him get to Nate in the first place in the fight. I think, playing a little more reserved game, I think it'll be more, and even in Nate's favor, it's just so long and tactical. And so I think I see Nate wearing him down and getting him in the later rounds.
That's awesome. What
about similar to how the first fight went?
You got a great analytical mind there, Luke. I got to ask you then to break down another fight on that card, the light heavyweight title contender eliminator fight. Glover Teixeira, Anthony Johnson, the winner probably hopefully getting a shot at your teammate and friend, Daniel Cormier. How do you see that one going down?
That's going to be an interesting one. I'm excited to see that one. I think even more so than most of these. That one's just going to be holding on to your seat the whole time. Anthony's just kind of, what he brings. That dude's got power like nobody else. Glover's got that power too, but I don't know if Glover's going to be willing to exchange in the pocket too much. He's kind of a tactical fighter. He's got a good double leg, so I think he sees some opening in Anthony, and if he can get it through Anthony, we'll see. All I know is that first round is going to be fireworks. There's going to be some blows exchanged. I kind of, given Anthony's wrestling background, I kind of favor him a little bit, just with power and he's a little crisper. He's a little more dynamic on the feet, and we'll see if Glover can get the takedown. That's the big question mark.
Well, there you got it. Analysis on a whole lot of landscapes from Luke Rockhold. Luke, awesome to have you on, man. I can't wait to have him on again. Hopefully when he's got his next fight announced, right, Mike?
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us. Middleweight division, also really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
See who he fights next and who Weidman fights next. Do they fight each other? I mean, there's just endless.
Yeah, he called out Anderson Silva. That's cool. He's saying he kind of put a jinx on Dan Henderson. If Dan Henderson gets injured, he's ready to step in Manchester. That's some news, man. He was just back in the gym the other day. That's crazy.
It's going to be interesting to watch the end of the year play out in the UFC for sure.
It definitely will be. And I appreciate Luke talking about some other stuff too. Talking about his father dying. I mean, to lose your title after a training camp when you were injured, and then your dad has been sick for a long time, to go into that fight with him in hospice, and then for him to die later in the week. I mean, just, all the trash talk aside, and, these guys and girls, they're in real life situations, and they got to go to work like everyone else, even when things aren't going well. Luke has a reputation for being aloof and arrogant and stuff, but I always feel like he's real earnest when you talk with him, and I saw him in another light when I was up there and at San Jose, and saw the leadership role and the type of, you talked about mentoring in the gym. He was there training for a camp, and he was running practice. Like, it was him and Cain Velasquez's practice, basically. Like, all that is to say that I think he's a thoughtful dude. I appreciate him going into all sorts of stuff, even outside of the fight world, because it's not like he's my, it's not like we're friends, for him to talk about that personal stuff with us, that's, that says a lot. And you talked about, multiple facets of people's life, and hearing about people's struggles and having it make their story mean something more to you. I mean, that certainly makes his story mean a whole lot more to me.
Yeah, and it's something you can't help but feel bad. Maybe that's the wrong way to phrase it, but about how his summer played out.
Yeah.
But it seems like he's keeping the right attitude and focusing on just moving forward, which is, what all basically you can do. But yeah, very open, very honest, willing to talk about anything.
Yeah. Talking about mistakes he felt he made. Like, that's not an easy thing for someone to do.
Yeah, and the whole Bisping ordeal was just a madhouse to watch unfold. Like, afterwards, the press conference, even in the cage, it's just madness. So, I'm sure he's tired of talking about it.
Yeah.
You hear Chris Weidman say earlier in the week, I think it was on Ariel's show, that it's almost embarrassing to have to say that Michael Bisping's the champion of his division, but very open, very analytical.
Yeah.
Hearing him break down the fights was particularly fascinating.
Yeah, that was pretty good. We should try to beg him to come on and do that more.
Yeah.
he has a good mind for it.
Be the guest analyst.
That's right. Luke's corner. He's a smart dude.
We do like the Fox Sports thing and just keep bringing like fighters in and have them join the desk.
Actually, now it's done. We're gonna do that.
Yeah.
Look forward to that. More fight breakdowns from top fighters.
We'll just Skype Luke in, and we'll let him. Maybe we'll get like a telestrator and he can draw for us.
That'd be awesome, man. We should do that. And to a little teaser, off the air, we're always setting up future guests and stuff, and we're so fortunate. We've had a bunch of top fighters and coaches hit us up and be like, give us kind words and say they want to be on. And look forward to some really great analysis, some more of it from top experts. Me and Mike just do our best to pretend, but we try to bring you guys the best real experts and analytical minds.
I like to think that I bring the wit and then you bring the analysis. I think that's like our.
I'm definitely not witty, so I hope you are bringing it.
I mean, I don't know if I would succeed.
No, you are. You are. You're bringing that and the impressive facial hair. But we're watching on video, and you should be watching on video.
Exactly.
He's a handsome mother effer.
Yeah, I actually a while back. UFC 192 interviewed Tyron Woodley, and we compared beer tips. That video is floating out there on the internet somewhere.
That's awesome. Find it.
But the response from the fighters that we've had on and fighters who've expressed willingness to come on has been great and encouraging. And everybody tuning in and listening and watching the videos, has been very, very greatly appreciated. We appreciate all the positive feedback we've gotten on social media. And just to remind everybody once more, you can get it in iTunes. You can get it in the Google Play Store. If you have an Android, there's like maybe 5 of you. It's also in the TuneIn app, and we're looking to branch out and get it into other podcast apps. But we also upload the video to FanSided. We also upload it to YouTube. Sometimes the process is a little longer to get it onto YouTube, but we're going to get it up regularly Monday mid-afternoon on fansided.com so that you can watch that. We'll tweet it out from the account, so make sure to check that. We also have SoundCloud, where we're going to be uploading all the audio as well. So there's lots of ways for you to follow whichever suits your life or the way that you consume digital media best. We're trying to make it as easy for you as possible.
I mean, if you like it, we also really appreciate those 5-star reviews on
yes,
on iTunes.
We are not above asking for 5
No. I'll ask again. I'll ask tomorrow. I'll ask Tuesday. It feels good, man. I like any superficial any superficial accolades that I can get. No, we really appreciate you guys. We've gotten a number of those, and we really appreciate it. It means a lot. We try our best here. Mostly Mike doing the hard work, and it feels good to see you guys listening.
And just to remind everybody, next week we got a lot of Bellator 160 lineup coming. We'll also be talking UFC 202, what happens that weekend. We'll be breaking that down. As always working on future guests. So next week's show could be very entertaining based on what happens. Who knows? Yeah. And I'll be in Vegas, so maybe we'll get some behind the scenes sound bites or other stuff to share that we'll hold off. But it'll be an interesting show. So
it definitely will. I'm holding out for the video footage of USADA drug testing that you're gonna get there.
Yeah.
Never before seen drug testing.
That'd be a great column idea. The journalist goes to the USADA drug testing process.
Has to watch as well.
I think that would be interesting. It wouldn't be great maybe in the written form, but it'd be great in video form. Like have like a video of like going through the process. Though Conor McGregor's blossoming media empire has already kind of done a video. We talked about that.
Yeah, that's true. But no journalist has had a gun pulled on them by Tim Kennedy while trying to get a collection sample.
That's true.
So you could be the first.
Yeah,
you could be the first. Tim Kennedy, get to Vegas.
It'll be the third Ice Cube and Kevin Hart movie, Right Along 3, USADA edition.
If anyone can do Photoshop well, I can't. Let's work on that movie poster.
Yeah, that'd be a great movie poster.
So good.
Best movie poster of all time. Anyways, we've talked long enough. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Till next Monday, where we'll be coming at you early afternoon. We promise. We've worked out some technical difficulties, so we'll be coming at the regular time. Thank you for bearing with us.
He means he's gotten me to wake up earlier on Mondays, so I'm gonna wake up before noon, and we'll try to get it done.
Thank you guys.